Hello, everyone. This is Lynn Davenport and Mary Lowe with another episode of Take Ed. So we've got the Republican convention happening next week. Mary and I will be attending. I'm a delegate and a precinct chair. So this is my first time to attend. I'm kind of learning before I go. And then, of course, I will be learning while I am there. I've always been a staunch conservative and a Republican voter, but I've been a bit fringy because I've never really understood how the Republican Party works and how the sausage is made, how things become a bill, the policy, the things that go on behind the scenes. I just didn't think that was really for me because I like to show up on the ground. I like to know what's happening in my local government. And but now I'm going to approach things from inside. And so, Mary, you've been doing a lot of work inside the party for years and helping people get elected and all of that. But you and I have been attending these Zoom meetings in anticipation and in preparation for the convention next week. And so the Education Resolutions Committee has been meeting, and we are allowed to listen in on that. It's led by young men, which I don't know if any of them even have children, but it's interesting to see who's been appointed to this. But they're very nice and professional and all of that. But seeing how the party has been focused so heavily on school choice and vouchers and privatization through the legislature and the special session, and these special interest groups are buying seats on state board and the House seats. So we're going to talk about this committee on resolutions for education within the Republican Party and our work that we plan to do. You and I are very much into building relationships with people on the ground. We don't do so well with those in power because we challenge them. And so that is how we've been able to get mostly women across Texas that we've met with and connected with. And we show up at the legislature and at school board meetings and do grievance hearings and all of that. We're all about the relationships. And so a lot of those relationships will be with us at the convention, and they see what we see. They understand that school choice is not a conservative principle or policy, that it actually grows government. So in the work that we do, what do you see our role with this education committee on resolutions? And what have you seen when you've been watching these Zoom meetings?
Well, I do want to talk a little bit about another segment, but I'm going to answer your question first. I'm highly concerned. I made an attempt to connect with every member of the committee, or have our families engaged activists in that Senate district contact the person who was appointed to the education committee that was from their area. Now, the committee is not comprised of someone from every Senate district, just so you know. The education committee, the resolution of the platform committee.
I'm Senate District 16. What are you?
I'm 12.
12. Yeah.
So okay. There's no one on education committee from 12. I don't think there is from 16 either, but I don't know who yours is. So Cindy Castilla is appointed to resolutions, but she was not appointed to education, but she'll be on the large committee. But in this small group where what they have been charged with by Matt Patrick is that they have
in my district.
Okay. Okay. Well, so Matt Patrick is over resolution. So he's the chairman of resolutions. And so,
but no one on the education resolutions is from 16 on it that I know of.
That is correct. Nobody is. So, so at any rate, as you move forward in this dialogue, I've never seen an education committee that was all men. I find that a little offensive of the Republican Party. And you would not, I want to say, okay, seriously, I'm not a feminist. I absolutely am not
either.
Yeah, I'm not a feminist.
People don't,
I'm not opposed to
they might
people
not
who
understand
are.
that, but but we have to deal with really bad behaviors from men and then the women who are paid by
I'm
them.
not interested in being talked down to by any man. My father
Not
never did it.
mansplaining, but yeah.
And yeah, I am done with that. And I am
Cool.
not going to be belittled because of that. Absolutely not.
Oh, and some of them think they're the smartest guys in the room, and it's painful to listen to because they truly do not understand what's going on. And especially as a mother, we're both mothers of children who've gone through the public schools,
Mhm.
and teaching is pink. It's a pink collar profession. It's
Yeah.
predominantly female, and so to have all these men meddling in the education when from an ivory tower or a policy perspective, it's just not practical and it's not going to solve the problem. So
Well,
I get
I'm,
very rebellious when I
yeah.
hear,
Shame on the Republican
yeah,
Party. I mean, shame on the Republican Party. The
yeah,
Republican Party gets mad at us because we are members of the Republican Party and they cannot challenge the fact that we are good members of the Republican Party. I mean, we have done significant things for the Republican Party on the local level, and the local level is where the big fight is. But I've also done it on the statewide level. Actually, I did it on the statewide level before I did on the local level, because locally you
sure.
lose friendships over it when you're in the local fight. But it's insulting because men are the ones, men focusing on profiteering and the lobbyists, and it is predominantly men. They are the ones who have driven education to the brink. And I'm going to go even further. The fatherless homes have done this as well.
Sure. Because then you have the
So,
poverty pimps who move in to replace the
right.
family and the daddies with the government, and it
So for the
doesn't work.
Republican Party, I mean, one of the
And the
hardest things,
Democrats do that too, big time,
right? But
it's
you
the
think about,
Republicans
we have a
in power.
presidential election this year,
Yeah.
and the Republican Party has a hard time attracting female voters. And then in the state of Texas, they take a committee that should be very heavily weighted with women, at least 50-50, and it's 100% male. And then the second thing that they do is that they put a 30-year-old who is a
31.
paid 31. I mean, honestly, my son is older than he is, and he talks down to me, and he's
Son
not
or
been.
the 31-year-old.
My son cannot talk down to me
Right.
anymore. So he does not, and he was, by the way, always very respectful. He
Yeah, I
manipulated me
believe
in
you.
other ways.
I believe you. No,
But
I just needed to clarify that. Yeah, you're talking
yeah,
about
no,
the chair of the resolutions. So,
yeah, Carrie Cheshire,
yeah,
Carrie
Carrie Cheshire.
Cheshire,
So you and I
31
had a
years old.
conversation. We had a conversation with him, and he's very bright, and he does bring up some good. He's good at challenging our positions on education. Like high stakes testing or even the vouchers. We've gone round and round on this, but ultimately we are right about this issue because when you follow the money, it always tells the story, and we're going to win every time because we cannot justify what we spend on high stakes testing and the return on the investment. It's not there. We cannot justify the cost of the school choice vouchers and the bills. 500 million was one of them, and 34 billion was another one. We cannot justify that growing government if we're the party of conservatism and fiscal responsibility and accountability. That the two those are inconsistent, incongruent. They are incompatible.
Yeah, they are. So I personally have a problem, although the sausage doesn't get completely made in that committee. But one of the things that many people have called me and said is, I don't even know why I'm going to the convention this time.
I've heard a lot of that. There's a lot of apathy, and that may be purposeful. There's a lot of apathy in voting if they don't believe that, like what we've been dealing with Jennifer Stoddard, our GOP chair in Dallas. The reason we ousted her is because we didn't feel like she was that she was interested in what the grassroots had to say.
Right.
So yes, there's a lot of apathy. People are frustrated. There's a lot of division within the party, and we get accused of being divisive and bombastic. But let me tell you, it's important that we have people who are closest to the children. And that's the thing about mothers, the umbilical cord and our direct connection to life and babies and the womb and then the classroom. That's why this is a huge problem that I have, that we don't have a woman in that spot. Now, maybe no women's, signed up to do it. I have no idea what happened behind the scenes, but then there's a recruiting issue, and there's clearly plenty of us.
No, they have to nominate. They have to nominate. Well, that's not true. That is not true. So you have Cindy Castilla. Yeah, I mean, but again, I go to the top of the party, and I would say that I believe the top of the party has become very misogynistic.
Abbott does not like to appoint women to much, very little. Most of the things I've been tracking that he's appointed, it'll have 4 or 5 men. It'll have 8 men. It'll have it. Yeah, no, you're exactly right.
So I have a problem with that committee, and then I see it that a lot of people have reached out to me and said, why are we even going to go and participate in the resolutions portion? And I've tried to explain to people that, we don't win and lose at the convention, and that we cannot look at it from winning and losing, that we have truth, and that we have specific we have specifically identified the problem in the education system, and we have to expose that to others. We've also specifically identified.
Go ahead and say it here, which is technology, which is the funding and what the money's really going to, which is the contracts, the vendors, and the special interests and the lobbyists. And these bills have fiscal notes, and they all roll downhill. We've got a problem at the TEA. We need to audit the TEA. We need to get rid of the commissioner. We need to out all of the special interests.
Well, now I've got to talk about the scapegoat, because the scapegoat that's being used is to attack the teachers. And we do have bad teachers, but one of the issues that I'm seeing
in every profession, we have bad lawyers. You have the state coming in,
Yeah. No. But the problem is that they use that as a scapegoat. And until the Republicans are willing to look themselves in the mirror and take ownership for their role, instead of saying that it's the liberal Democrats that are destroying our education system, or that it's the teachers that are destroying our education system, that is not truth. And we are going to bring truth.
No, both can be true at the same time. I mean, there's no question that we have that liberals have run amok in our schools because we abandoned them. We quit going to school board meetings. We ignored it when they were setting the property tax rate. We gripe about all of those things when we haven't been showing up. We show up at this is my observation. We show up at things like the Reagan dinners and the big things with Ted Cruz, but we're not showing up in the dirty local politics of the city government, the schools, the commissioner's court, all of that those people fail upwards. And Republicans don't have a good presence in that. Now that's changing. In Dallas, we've got groups like the Deplorables and A Better Dallas. We are showing up, and that's how we've made progress in getting a new chair with Alan West of the GOP. But statewide, we've got some issues there. And so, but back to the convention. So I'm going in really as, I'm going in green. I'm going there to learn. I'm going there to make connections and relationships. I mean, there are those who we already know who they are and we believe them. So there's no point in trying to make relationships with people who are not going to do the right thing by the children and the taxpayers. Those who are pushing an agenda, or they're paid by special interests to be there, that's happening within the party, where you have billionaires funding these operatives who go in and get on these key positions, and then they make decisions that then support whatever the agenda that the billionaire has of the privatization. People who have no idea what's going on in the schools. They want to change how the kids are learning, what they're learning. They're wanting to put them on devices. All that's happening through the Republican Party. All of the technology has come through the Republican Party, and all the bad bills have been signed by Republican governors for 20 years. This is all on us. This is all on the Republican Party. We can blame the Democrats all we want, they tell us who they are, and they do exactly what they say they're going to do. But when we have people in the party who pretend to want to do what's right by the kids, but then, their
Yeah,
behavior
but I'm
otherwise,
going to
we call them
say,
out. Call them out.
I've
Expect them.
I've been attacked this election cycle because I've made comments that if the Republicans don't change their positioning, that the Democrats are going to win. And I would say this is an area where
Yeah,
the
and they call you a
Democrats.
Democrat because you're asking the question. I mean, should we go meet with the Democrats if we can't get that was your point. That was your point. You're not a Democrat. I can vouch for the
No,
fact that you are not a Democrat, and you've
but
never been a Democrat. I mean,
if the Republicans don't change course, they are not going to attract people who really are concerned
sure.
and that are going to show up, because they're repelling so many people right now because of the behavior of this party in Texas, and nobody wants to be around the chaos, and
Because
nobody
it's
wants.
right on right. I mean, they're putting up people to run
Right.
against people on the right who aren't are
They're not bad.
yeah, I mean, you don't run against somebody who's a conservative. Why would you do that? I mean, it makes no sense. Like the state board, they're
Right.
taking seats. They're trying to take seats. And
Yeah.
so,
I
yeah,
mean,
I mean, I won't get
but
into
I
all of
think
that, but
the bigger thing, Lynn, has been the deception. I mean, the deception in the platform, the deception in the words that are used. Plank 101 is full of
antics, yes.
it's full of deception, and it's all about marketing so that they can get their way.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of deception about, you're a rhino. Oh, well, you aligned with the governor 100% of the time. Well, 99% of the time, but that makes them a rhino. So is our governor a rhino? I mean, we have to
Yeah,
be
I
true.
mean, that means Republican in name only. So there are a lot of people who are Republican in name only. Their behavior shows that it's not even that they're Democrats. It's that
They're globalist.
elite, it's globalist, and it's an elite plan
Mhm.
that they think. I mean, we have a friend who met with Dan Patrick, and he is all on board with removing the taxpayers, the vote, and the voice of the people. He's totally fine with taxation without representation. That's what he
Mhm.
said. He
Yeah.
overtly and explicitly agrees with the wholesale privatization of our public schools. Well,
Well, and I'm getting hammered a little bit because I've taken a position against Tim Dunn, but I also took a position
that's the
against.
billionaire in Midland who funds. Sorry, I'm explaining.
Well, I mean, he ran a campaign against Jay Johnson, who was probably the most conservative member we've ever had serve on the State Board of Education.
Yeah, if
And the
they can't
reason
control them, then they run someone against them,
yeah, yeah.
and
But
we're
he
not.
wanted charter schools. And so he ran Aaron Kinsey.
Yeah, he's
He wanted,
military COE. Yeah, but
right.
I was pointing out Tim Dunn because he's one of those West Texas billionaires who's meddling in not only the party but education. He's on the board of TPPF, so you see his fingerprints on a lot of the
Mhm.
elections, the PAC money, that kind of
Well,
thing.
and the chairman of the party works for Tim Dunn. He does his taxes, he does legal work for him, and
Matt
they
Rinaldi, the
have.
current
Yeah.
chair of the
And
party.
I believe that is why you see the appointment of someone like Carrie Cheshire over this committee, because Carrie Cheshire's paycheck has certainly in the past been directly tied to Tim Dunn, Wilkes and Dunn, Pale Horse,
So
and
Pale Horse
now.
Strategies is on Carrie Cheshire's resume.
Yes.
And
So I just, I don't believe that I don't believe that that's a representation of the party. And I do believe that that's with an intent to control and pre-control the agenda of the convention. And again, we're no better than the Democrats with George Soros, who's controlling the judges. If we're predetermining what the outcome is going to be, then people aren't going to show up. I mean, the Democrats, no one showed up for their convention in Texas in 2022. I don't.
because of
I'm
the same deal. Yeah.
right.
Yeah. And
And
I think you're seeing a lot. Like I'm meeting people, we have people who come to the middle from being in the Democrat Party and the medical freedom issue. They realize that
Mhm,
Democrats
mhm.
really aren't for medical freedom or free speech. I mean, or whatever, Second Amendment rights. They're moving. So you're seeing people moving into this. It's it's not, it's almost an unparty. And you've got the uniparty with the left and right. And then you've got those who's like, I don't have a home. I don't fit in the Republican Party. I don't fit in the Democrat Party. I want somebody who's going to represent me. So me personally, I'm trying to use my time, talents, treasure, to make a difference within the party, because I am conservative. I am very concerned about property tax relief. We'll never get that with the Republican Party because they're spenders. We're spenders. And we spend it on bills and fiscal notes that roll down, and then unfunded mandates as well for our district. So that has to change. We have to repeal all these bad bills. We don't need a bunch of new bills that this policy, this whole resolutions committee is trying to influence how it wants to turn it into a bill at the legislature. That's the whole reason why all this happens, right? Well, we don't need any more bills. We need to repeal bad bills. But that's what we need to do. But instead, we're going to spend all this time and energy splitting hairs and talking semantics and trying to just craft it so we can appease everyone. And they'll say, oh, but we don't want strings. Well, they need to define strings, which they've not done. They need to define strings because the bills always have strings. And we know that the governor won't sign any bill that doesn't have strings because it's unconstitutional. They have to have strings based on Article 7. So then they have to do a constitutional amendment. I mean, the whole thing is like what a tangled web we weave when we practice to deceive. That's all this is. It's deception.
It's interesting. Hindsight's always 20/20, and there was such an argument at the last convention and such heightened testimony and a lot of tears over Plank 101. And I had no idea. What ended the debate was Teresa Beckmeyer said, what if we say no strings? And those of us who were trying to kill the resolution said, okay. I mean, literally, when she said that, we said, okay, because we don't want the government growing into other areas. And if the government can, they will. And everything they've shown us is that is the intent, everything the governor has said. And I had no idea how brilliant Teresa Beckmeyer was in that it was almost like a Hail Mary pass. Like, let me try this. And by George, it worked. And the resolution is good, with the exception that it says that choice is what empowers a parent. Quality schools, regardless of where or what they are, will be a benefit to parents. That's what will be a benefit for parents. Safe schools will be a benefit to parents, but they are not empowered by the government, and they never will be. And for us to perpetuate that myth is
a huge problem to conflate that, because parental rights and school choice, no.
Yeah. Well, and our goal is to teach parents how to exercise their rights, whether it's opting out of a STAR test or saying that, my child's not going to be vaccinated or my child's not going to do this, that they are the author of that child's yes and that child's no, and not the government. And so we're trying to teach them that. And then I would say that we have a train wreck in the party, because you have this major movement for tax relief, and specifically a major movement that want property tax abolished.
Right.
Major movement. Right. And then you have this major movement for an ESA or a voucher, and they cannot exist together.
No.
That is a train wreck. And I don't know how, and many of our elected officials have promised to deliver on both. Many of our elected officials have promised
are mutually exclusive. And the reason is because the ESA would require taxation through property taxes, and the property tax relief would require abolishing property taxes.
Yes.
Okay.
So
and our friends at that Facebook page of the Horse Barn, I'll send this to them because I don't think that they have considered that. It's a wish list over here. Sure. I mean, I'd like to abolish property taxes, but money's going to come from somewhere. They're going to.
Well, and in that group particularly, the House members that have promised to deliver on property tax abolishment are the same ones who are out campaigning for the governor's agenda of the voucher and promising to deliver on that. And they cannot do that.
Helen Kerwin is an example of that. So she's,
well, I mean, Brian Harrison, Nate Schatzline, Tony Tenderholt. I mean, they're the ones who have promised them. Right. And then now they're even campaigning, because I've kind of thought, okay, they're going to give, the gambling is going to get through, and they're going to say, now we can give you property tax relief because we've got all this money coming in from gambling. But those particular fellas are the ones who are saying they're against gambling, which I'm grateful for that. You know, I am grateful for that. So it's very interesting, but the party is going to have to define who they are based off of the principles, or they're going to have to redefine the principles. And the wishes of the party has been not to redefine the principles. So I don't know where we go, but
where we go is we have to say, we understand with the property tax relief and the abolishing property taxes, if that's not the solution, because really the biggest solution is you just quit spending. And the way to quit spending is, if we focus on, instead of 1,200 school districts, you focus on taking down the mothership of the TEA. And who's above the TEA? The federal government. There's no constitutional justification for the federal Department of Education. We actually do have some legislators like Brian Harrison, and hey, when they say the right thing, then we celebrate.
Yeah.
So thank you, Brian, for listening to us, or whoever you're listening to that's telling you that we need to reject federal funding in the Department of Education. Texas should stand alone on this. We should be a leader on this with our $33 billion surplus over taxation. And then supposedly it's going to be a $90 billion surplus of over taxation coming up this next year. So that we could stand alone, reject the federal funding, whether it's 10% or however much that is of our budget, reject that and the strings that come along with Title 1, 2, 3, and 4.
You know, again,
the TEA, audit the TEA, which we mentioned as solution. We have solutions, but we have to be willing to say that the TEA is corrupt. We don't care if there's a Republican in there or Republican appointed. The TEA is the government, and the government has grown under the watch of Abbott and Mike Morath. And we have to call it out.
Dan Patrick. I want to say
all the operatives,
that the greatest success is still at your local level. My school district has is going forth with a resolution. My neighboring school district has already adopted a resolution that addresses the Title IX dictate or edict of Biden about, you know, Title IX, the dilemma that we're facing there. They have addressed it, and they are willing to hire the attorney to defend their right for local control. So they've already
go back. So that actually goes to the resolutions committee. That's one thing I want to listen over and over again. It's like this wish list of issues on cultural and morality issues. You can't legislate those. All of these things have to be, you have to change the hearts and the minds and the soul, or the perspective, or you have to change the attitudes. You do that through relationships at the local level. So all of these solutions are at the local level. And you just mentioned with the resolutions of people that you know in different areas, in different Senate districts, that's where we change it. And if we're trying to do it at the state convention or the state level, the only way to do that is to point back to the local level. So a lot of the things I heard in that chat last night is that they want to legislate morality. That's just not the way we do it. It's not going to work.
I also think it's lazy. I think it's very lazy. You know, we want technology taken out. But you know, we're working with a lot of school districts, and they're doing it. I mean, but the problem is that the state has put it into the law that they have to do technology. But we have local school districts that are saying, parents, opt out of the STAR test. Here's how you do it. We're not going to give the STAR to third graders, and we're not going to have third graders on a screen. So local is messy. And it's hard.
It's messy and it takes longer, but
it does.
But it is the only way to do it right.
It's the only way we will have freedom. It is the only way we will continue to have freedom. So I would say we're not against changing things, but the majority of things that need to be done is that laws need to be taken off of the books.
Yeah.
So that local does not have to face the challenge of whether or not they'll be taken over by TEA by not following TEA's and the legislature where they've gotten completely out of line. Mm-hmm. So, again, to end this, there's some good resolutions. There was one classroom to clinic pipeline, which is where the wraparound services are coming in, and they're just bundling off millions and millions of dollars from education to the university medical schools for mental health. And that's not what Article 7 entitles the state to collect our taxes for. Right. So again, I want everybody to, we need to come together and we need to find specifics at what are the real principles. If we're for small government, then the solution to education cannot be to grow government. Right. And that's where we are right now. And education
proposes that we have to call them out on because it's wrong. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It'll never
thank you. We both have things we've got to do. I hope that I hope that this is heard with the message that is intended, and that people will understand that changes do need to be made, and that there is no indication that those changes are being made at this point. That we see a doubling down on the authority of the oligarchs and granting them their expansion of power through money. Right. And that is not healthy for our country.
No, ma'am.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.